Comfortable. Uh, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me thank FICCI and IBA for inviting me to this annual banking seminar. And I must say this seminar has become a very important event on the annual banking calendar. I remember I was here last year also. And I think there is a set format which has been decided for me. I am telling so last year also. Governor spoke in the morning, I spoke in the afternoon. As a result, you can't help but there would be some repetition. But the repetition underscores two very important things. One, there is a uniform thinking as far as RBI is concerned. So all of us think and speak in the same way. And the second very important point is truth will always be the same. You need not invent it. Whether governor is speaking, I am speaking, or any other colleague is speaking, if there is a truth, it will come in a common fashion. The second uniform structure about my speaking here that I am always required to speak immediately after the lunch session. And I think that itself becomes quite a cloud on the horizon. But anyway, today's this session and in the time which is available with me, I have decided to put forth my view through a small presentation. I will run 8 or 9 slides, each dealing with one particular area of banking, trying to summarize all the important points surrounding that particular area. Obviously, it will not be possible to elaborate on each point in the given time frame, but my effort is that each slide should contain some of the relevant items and some of the items where it would be good to use them as a reference point for the players in the industry and think about putting an implementation framework. Obviously, all these things would not be something which are not known. Most of these things are already known in the industry, but only idea is it always is beneficial to reiterate the point, pull them together, see them in the right context, and then chalk out a course of action. So with this, as you have seen that I have put the title of my presentation as Banking Horizon, Clouds and Silver Linings. As we know, they do coexist. Yeah. Very briefly, I will touch upon the global scenario, and as we know that every day we deal with a new event, is a very fluid scenario, and so Brexit or whether the Fed is going to increase the rate, if yes, when. The Chinese growth, or we talk about the Eurozone banking system, particularly the crisis which is brewing in the Italian banking system, the economic recovery, which global economic recovery, which several revision by the IMF, and it is still looking hesitant. As per the latest provisional estimation by IMF, they are estimating the global growth for the year 2016 at 3.1% and 3.4% for the year 2017. But within that, the growth in advanced economies appear to be almost flat at 1.8%, whereas in emerging economies, is expected that the growth will be 4.1% for the year 2016 and improving slightly to 4.6% in the year 2017. And then, of course, the ultra loose or ultra accommodative monetary policies and negative rate of interest. The point I am trying to make, which I have put in the last sentence, these are so uncertain events, and they may have a very conflicting kind of consequences. For example, if there is a rate rise by Fed, but at the same time there is more accommodative policy by many other advanced economies, how the combined impact, what will be the spillover impact, how the emerging economies would be impacted, these are, I think, some of the things which are in the realm of uncertainty, and we need to be conscious about it. Now, quickly, regulation. Regulation globally is becoming more intrusive. Post-global crisis, a number of acronyms, they have arrived on the banking scenario. I have mentioned some of them. TLAC as the total loss absorption capacity, which is presently relevant in the context of GSIBs. The capital conservation buffer or the counter-cyclical buffers, liquidity coverage ratio, net stable funding ratios, systemically important financial institutions. These are all new acronyms which have come on the scenario, and banking system is required to deal with them. But on top of that, and as an emerging economy, we feel concerned at point of time that in addition to the common agreed minimum international rules, there are pockets of global economy, there are countries, and there are jurisdictions which do choose to impose their own regulation over and above the internationally agreed common regulation. And so the Volcker rule are many similar things you will keep on hearing. Two things which I want to particularly want to bring the attention, which are presently thoughts in process, work in process. There is no still settled opinion on this, but certainly these are the items which are quite intensively being debated at the global regulatory forums, various forums. And this is one, whether the sovereign debt should be entirely risk-free or there should be a risk weightage for sovereign debt. This is something which is under discussion. And also, whether under the Basel III, whether there is a need to bring a new standardized approach for applying the risk weight for the credit as well as operational risk. Now, where from these concerns are stemming? In case of sovereign debt, the case of many countries having raised the sovereign debt, particularly in the currencies which is not their own, and the subsequent instances of default. In case of credit risk, the internal models and the variability which are there across the jurisdiction in applying the risk weight, these are, I think, some of the thoughts which are driving towards this end to bring this kind of a common approach. And just think for a moment that if any of these gets translated, what would be the impact on the capital requirement, on the profitability, and a host of other issues. We all know about the penalties, the stress tests which are being conducted in various jurisdictions, particularly in US and European Union. And of course, nearer home, in a year's time, we would be moving to the new accounting standard, which will have its own requirement on the capital, the provisioning requirement, the asset recognition, and so on. Now, as I have mentioned, that the impact on banks' profitability, and do regulators need to worry about that? Now, as I mentioned, a couple of instances like sovereign debt or the change in the risk weight and the bringing back a standardized approach in one form or other, it can have its own implication on the capital adequacy. Now, why banks' profitability is important? I must say that as a regulator, we are certainly, and we need to be worried about the bank's profitability, because profits and the internal retention, they are the major source of capital creation in any bank. And capital is very, very important for the banks to continue to do their lending activities. They are very important for the real economy. And from that perspective, it is important that banks get a decent return on the capital which they employ. And so by translation, it has impacts on the financial stability within the country. So this being the case, at least from the emerging market perspective, we have been advocating on all the policy forums, whether it is Financial Stability Board or whether it is the Basel Committee, that while the regulations need to be fine-tuned, we need to bring all these measures or the controls which are being discussed. But we have to be conscious that all these measures should not end up into demanding a significant additional capital from the banking system, which can impede their capital. But the reality is, in any international forums, there are several countries, there are several very distinct groups. There would be a group of advanced economy, there will be a group of emerging market economies, and at times there could be interests which are not exactly aligned with each other. And at the end of the day, whatever common framework emerges is something which everyone needs to adopt uniformly. So the short point is, we need to be aware of the possibilities and remain best prepared for that. Third, of course, is the most discussed topic in the banking industry for last 1 year or so. And I believe that Governor has also spoken at length on this subject in the morning. So suffice to say that it is a work in progress. And work in progress not in the sense that we intend to bring another installment to or any such thing like that, but whatever has already been the framework which has been put in place, there are still components which needs to be addressed. I happened to see yesterday only there is a report which is released by one of the investment advisory, and it indicates that the interplay between NPA and structured assets in this quarter is relatively reduced. So if there is a 100 basis point migration, the interplay between the NPA and restructured assets is only 30 basis point. What does it mean? It means 70 basis point stress has come from the fresh sources. And I think that is a departure from the past trend. Having said that, two trends are quite clear if I look at the Q1 results of most of the banks. One, there is a moderation in accretion of further NPAs. The pace of further NPA formation has certainly come down. And second, most of the banks have reflected a much better recovery performance. So these are two very clear terms. Now, as I have mentioned, provisioning need would continue because of the fresh accretions which are coming, as also as the aging of old NPA would require the additional provisioning. Most of the cases which are recognized or being recognized, they carry substantial non-fund exposures also. And as we move into the year, there would be crystallization of some of these non-fund exposures depending on the development which are happening in the individual account. On the third point, I think enough has been spoken in the morning, but I will only pick up the last point of the third one, where I say sitting stunned is no solution. I think Governor precisely said the same thing in the morning. But the last point, resolution can't be delegated. What do I mean? One is having adopted a particular structure, uh, resolution can't be delegated at three levels. Number one, the whole resolution planning, you can't delegate to an outside agency. You can take their assistance, but you cannot completely outsource a resolution planning. Banks have to be, necessarily they have to be in the game, one. Second, if it is a group of bankers, again you can't delegate to one or two banks. While they will bring a certain framework, but all the banks, all the players would have to be necessarily an active partner in making that resolution successful. The third point, and which I keep on hearing, see, if a resolution planning is to be done, and if a group is meeting, and if group participation is done at a very junior level from the banks, I don't think these kind of meetings reach to any conclusion. When the banking industry is facing an important issue like this, it's very important that resolution group should be represented by senior management, and whatever decision is taken there, it should be implemented quickly. Very often I keep on hearing, number one, representation is at junior level. Even within there, whatever is decided, but ultimately when it comes to the execution, I think it takes unduly long time. And I think that contributes a lot of problem which we are looking today. When I say small tickets don't translate into small attention, I mean to say the banking industry has spent substantial time and energy in dealing with the large corporate, but it does not mean that the other part of the portfolio which consists of say retail loan or the agriculture or SME loan does not need attention. In fact, if we see the pattern of Q1 results, then it's quite obvious that some of these segments are showing their own challenges. So the small attention will not do. And finally, the credit migration. I mentioned this point because if we look at the credit growth rate for the year ended March 2016, you will find a clear divergence between two segments in the industry. While the one segment of banking industry has clocked a credit growth, which is almost plus 20%, whereas the other segment has clocked a credit growth which is in single digit, less than 10%, 7%, 8%. Now, while some of this difference may be judiciously by the pace of normal business growth, but I don't have the data to substantiate it. But my feeling is that some of this difference is also coming because of the migration of credit from one segment to other segment. That is the cherry picking. And in the sense that I think the industry, the part of industry which is losing credit in that fashion should be conscious that it's very important to retain the existing business. And if they fail to do it, then probably the residual portfolio would not be something which will be very comforting. Quickly coming to the credit part of it, corporate, some of these reports are widely known about how of a large universe of 3,700 corporates, how a majority of them are having the interest coverage ratio of less than 1, and all those things are already known. I think this is coming from two sources. One, the upper part was from a research report which is published by the Credit Suisse and updated from time to time. And second, about on the refinancing risk is a recent paper which was published by the India Rating Research. And when they have given certain data that how much credit is due for refinancing in incoming year. So this is the overall situation as far as the large corporates are concerned broadly. At the same time, as you must have seen, the Reserve Bank has issued certain papers in recent past. One is about the changes which are proposed to be brought under the single borrower and group exposure limits which banks are having presently. which is more to harmonize our regulation with the international regulation. And there is another discussion paper which has outlined the roadmap which RBI proposed to follow in migrating some of the corporate credit to market when it exceeds beyond a particular limit from the banking system. Now, these two situations put together, I think it provides an opportunity for the banks to assess their individual portfolio and also then rebalance. Next point, I have briefly touched on the MSME sector, where you can see that 78% of MSME still source their credit from informal market or the own sources, which clearly means that there is a lot of scope as far as the MSME are concerned. And similarly, there are scopes in retail, because with the urbanization and rising middle class, there are scope. But what I am trying to say, that looking at these two sectors, it is not the unmixed blessings. And if I read the post-result announcement of a majority of the CEOs, I think there is a common sentence I find in everyone's statement, that we are focusing on retail and MSME. So it kind of becomes the flavor of the year or the fashion statement of the time. I would say it's not as simple as that. As the banking industry has seen few years back in the field of infra financing and financing some of the large industry, that if you enter into a sector without proper understanding and without sufficient back office preparations, then these things come back to haunt you at some point of time in the future. Same is true with whether it is MSME or retail, is very important. These are segments which have the potential, but it's very important to understand the business and to have the robust back office preparedness. Finally, a very brief, and here I have mentioned, I think that we have reached to a point in the country where for this segment, for the retail and MSME, there is a need of institution of accredited credit counselors, because this is one challenge which MSME face in approaching the banking system, and that is one area where some work is we have already initiated some work. Finally, in agriculture, I think agriculture banking industry, year by year, there is an increased target which is being accepted and being achieved. But I would believe that there is a limit to it. It can't be an unlimited activity. And until and unless there is improvement in the risk absorption capacity, the credit absorption capacity of this sector, then it could be risky. And credit absorption capacity will come by the land reform, by putting the investment, by putting a proper ecosystem, that there is a effective insurance scheme. All these are components, and then the value chain, the distribution, supply, a host of all those things. That is what I mean by ecosystem. When they are in place, then this sector will have a larger credit absorption capacity, and I think that would be the time when this continuous increase in agriculture lending would be sustainable. Quickly on competition, again, I think this institution and all those things have been spoken at length. I won't go to each point, only couple of points. One is recently we have been hearing from few banks. I have seen few banks have taken some initiative also. The point 3, that is the joint origination. Now, NBFC and the MFIs, as we know, they have better last mile connectivity, probably a more intense and direct connect with the customers. Banks have the ability of probably a better capital and funding availability. Now, is there a possibility that these two capabilities are leveraged by coming together? I am not talking about the securitization. I am not talking about refinancing the NBFCs or MFIs by the banks, but I am talking about the joint origination, where each single loan is jointly originated, the loan amount is shared in certain percentage, risk is shared, collections are shared, and there is a fair agreement about how to charge the rate of interest or how to provide the fee for additional services which one of the partner would be putting in the structure. I think it merits a look, and it is something which we should look into it. Now, the new customer, new channels, fintech, we are discussing. So, new age customer and new age instrument, mobile banking, all these areas we need to be sensitive about. On customer service, I have expressed several times, and I think it requires a repetition that one area in customer service where we are getting deeply concerned is around the mis-selling, and particularly mis-selling of third-party products. And every day we keep on hearing numerous instances where such practices are brought to our notice. I have mentioned it earlier also. The charter which we had given for voluntarily adoption by the banks, that period is already over in July, so that charter of customer right is there. We have asked the banks to institute the Office of Internal Ombudsman. We recently had a conference, but let me again reiterate here in very, very clear terms that this is one area which concerns us very deeply, and if we don't see a perceptible improvement, or we see the instances which are still coming out, I think the consequences could be quite serious, which can be in variety of ways, including the financial penalties. So I would urge all the banks to look at this area seriously. It should engage the attention of top management. It should not be a box-ticking exercise. It should not be a mere compliance exercise. You have to ensure that the customers who are coming to you, they are getting a fair deal, and they are not misled by the dealing staff at the dealing level. We have also very clearly given the message to our ombudsman, to our internal staff, and you must have seen a draft circular on limiting the individual liability in case of the e-transaction and other is already issued for the discussion. But there is a very clear message from our side that in any case between an institution and an individual, if there is a doubt, then benefit of doubt is undoubtedly to be given to the individual. We understand very well that when an individual is pitted against might of an institution, the things can drag on for years. Our legal system allows that a case can drag on for decades. But from the regulatory side, it is very, very clear, wherever there is any doubt, the benefit of doubt has to go to the individual. And with now UPI coming, I still remember, I think couple of years back or a year back, in another conclave, I had mentioned about the concept of account number portability. That while the mobile number can be portable, why account number cannot be portable? And imagine if account number is portable, then no customer will suffer in silence. He would not even come and waste his time complaining to you. He will simply migrate his or her business without losing any of the connectivity and any of the data point which he has put at several. And now with UPI, maybe in a slight different form, but the account number portability is very much a reality and is a wake-up call for the banking system. that you have to serve your customers in a real service, not a lip service, otherwise a silent customer will just walk out. And finally, an account opening. I think in last week, again, we have taken a lot of initiative. We are going to start a campaign also. And I still don't know whether account opening with the banking system is a pleasure or still a pain. And I think when I hear that our previous governor, Dr. Subba Rao, after retirement, when he tried to open an account in Hyderabad, he had quite a harrowing time. So I don't know whether things have changed substantially. But the point I am trying to tell you in again bringing focus and giving so much of publicity is, and I think it will be meaningful for the bank CEOs present here to convey this message to their ground level staff. If a customer is having those simple points, what we are finding that financial illiteracy is not only on the customer side. I think financial illiteracy is as prevalent in the banking staff as it is with the customers. So at time bank customer is aware that this is the requirement for account opening, but when he is stepping into bank branch, he is told by the staff that no, this is not sufficient. And the very often the most common point to bring authority to what you are telling is to say this is what RBI has said. And poor fellow customer has no way to really dispute that RBI has not spoken like this. So that is why now we are publishing this very simple, small point, which any customer can take to the banker and show him that this is what RBI says, and now at least open the account. On operational, cyber security, frauds, all these are very known cases about the import remittance, fixed deposit. Only the one new element, which is not new, but again, it is noticed with much more intensity is in recent past in couple of instances, is the frauds which are happening in the documentary credit. Opening of fake LCs by connivance with the bank staff, getting those bills discounted. Some of these are common symptoms. Whenever there is some stress in wider economy, these are the kind of instances which keeps on cropping up. But despite putting the requirement that the LC opening and instruction should be conveyed through the system, through electronically and all that, despite all, these instances are being noticed again and again. In KYC ML, see like a number of accounts are opened in a short period of time, but it's very important to monitor actually what is happening in those accounts. Our sense is that while the level of KYC at the time of account opening has become strong, it has become quite good, but post-monitoring of the account continue to be lax. And that is why there had been instances of money muling, etc., which has been observed. So I think looking to the time, I would simply come that finally the last point which I have mentioned, that is very important in today's time, that there should be a strong central surveillance system. The kind of dispersed monitoring system which many banks are having is not going to help. A strong surveillance system for the transactions in the account and strong central processing, particularly for the documentary credit, is something I would strongly advocate for all the banks to follow. What happened? What is it? on from here. Yeah. Further. Almost last. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. Just. So finally, some of the trend which is about the technology, digital payment, maybe from analytics to the artificial intelligence to the robotics. But of the all this 4 or 5 points which I have mentioned in the beginning, the only things which leave me concerned is that a large part of banking industry, see, all these things required a long-term vision and continuity of the efforts. Now, a large part of the industry where the leadership change are so frequent, I don't know whether this kind of long-term plan and vision is being put in place and then being followed. So it is for the boards of those respective banks to really ponder over it and put a policy like this. This is the interesting thing which Monetary Authority of Singapore has spoken, that for any new innovation as a regulator, we would be applying the test of materiality and proportionality. It means a regulator would come into the picture when they feel that the risk is becoming material, not try to stifle the innovation at the very initial stage, and also apply the regulation in proportion to the risk which is envisaged, and the sandbox that, okay, we allow the innovation to happen in the controlled environment so that even if it fails, its implications are not widespread. I think time has come that in some of the areas, banks can as well pool the resources. And I think there is an interesting example where the HSBC and Morgan Stanley are coming together to share the back office technology. And mind it, I think IT cost around 8 to 9% of operating cost in the banking system. So with this, finally, as I said, that I would only be worried if trading and fee generation becomes more important than lending. I think the core dharma of banking system is lending, and all other activities should be the second to it. And finally, this is more in the HR area and the governance, rather than going into detail on HR and governance, which can be a big topic in itself. I thought I would simply put this message from G30 report, which is very relevant in that context. So with this, I think having overstepped on my time to some extent, I would like to conclude here with the final assurance that silver linings are not elsewhere. They are always at the edge of clouds only. So need is to discover them and act on them. Thank you very much for